The corona pandemic, where do we go from here? Delegate Alonzo Washington talks about Maryland unemployment. Reading, writing, and arithmetic? Will Maryland schools reopen? And what's happening in your community? A conversation with the mayor of Bowie. It's time to wake up.
Good day, and welcome to The Wake Up, Social Distancing Edition. I'm one of your hosts, Jana Parker, community advocate, and I'm joined by my co-host, Sherman Hardy, the voice of the people, and Martin Mitchell, president of the Young Democratic Party of this county. On today's show, we will be joined by Theresa Dudley, president of the Prince George's County Educators Association, Tim Adams, mayor of the city of Bowie, and our first guest is the honorable delegate of the 22nd District of Prince George's County, Alonzo Washington. Delegate Washington, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to having a good morning with you guys.
Thank you. So we have a lot of questions and we have a short amount of time, so let's just get right into it. My first question is related to the canceled May session for the General Assembly. How will that affect the various bills that were decided upon this session, as well as the legislative response to COVID-19?
Well, I want to send my thoughts and prayers out to all the families that are out there right now that are suffering from this horrific, disease that's occurring right now. And, we ended our session early because of it, because we wanted to keep people safe in the General Assembly. And we had the thought and the idea that we might come back in May to help do some of the other business that we wanted to tend to, and maybe there could be some piece of legislation that we wanted to get passed, but the speaker and the two presiding officers, the speaker and the Senate president, decided that we can, at a later time in the year, we can have a session. But those bills that we passed during the session will not be impacted at this moment. The bills have all been sent to the governor, waiting for his signature, or not his signature. So it happens. So those bills are already on his desk, waiting for signatures.
Awesome. And I know I keep in touch regularly with or continue to watch the lives from Governor Hogan when he does his updates. And I heard a particular part that stuck with me, and I wanted to get clarification. Has there been any recent changes in state benefits in relation to unemployment, healthcare, and or SNAP benefits in regards to allowing the use of SNAP funds to purchase restaurants, hot food, and such? Or is it just grocery and cold food?
So the Maryland Department of Human Services provides a SNAP emergency allotment, benefiting more than 300,000 Marylanders who have SNAP across the state. Maryland will receive about $33 million per month in additional SNAP benefits for Maryland for the months of April and May. So there will be some increased benefits to the SNAP program through the state of Maryland, and the unemployment insurance. We're lucky enough that some of our barbers, some of our folks who are gig workers will now be able to have unemployment or check-in unemployment on Friday. I've been hit up by a lot of barbers. Unfortunately, I don't see them often because of my hair, but I think that this is a good benefit for all of them.
Awesome. And following up on that question really quick, I do have a follow-up for that. Now, what are the requirements to apply for those gig workers and other people? Because typically they won't fall within the guidelines for unemployment or for those benefits, and the process to probably apply may be a little different. Is it?
Right. Yeah, it's different because they're not employees, right? They're kind of their own bosses, and they are sometimes consultants, sometimes they have their own LLC if you're a barber or a beautician. But this would allow them to be able to actually apply for that because the current application process wouldn't allow for it. So luckily enough, we heard from enough of them. A lot of them live in my district. A lot of them are artists. And so we wanted to make sure we took care of everybody. And so we're glad that it's getting done.
And I'm just asking for a friend because I fall in that category, and I just want to know where I needed to apply so I can let everybody else know.
Okay, good, no problem.
So, Delegate Washington, I just wanted to get a little more insight. What's the state's response on acquiring more PPEs and ventilators for our hospitals and our healthcare professionals as well as basic masks for citizens because of the new state mandate?
Well, if you're watching the press briefings of the president, you understand that we have everything we need apparently, but we don't. We asked for millions of PPEs from the federal government. They have failed to deliver. And unfortunately for us, we did get some. I think we got about 600,000 of PPEs for the state. I know the county is working on some. I know our school system has donated several. I know that we are working really hard to make sure that we get more PPEs, but 600,000 is the number that I have for the state that we received, and we're constantly trying to make sure we have more. I know that with the N95 masks, the state did develop a center where you can refurbish those and clean them thoroughly. It only takes about 24 hours to get them clean, and they can get them back out to the hospitals when they need them. So there's a recycling center, if you will, for PPEs in the state. I believe it's in Baltimore, and so all the counties are using that center.
Okay, and that's awesome, and of course we appreciate your leadership in the states.
Thanks.
And so, Delegate Washington, we got to kind of wrap up, but I wanted to get some final thoughts. Speaking about the PPEs and kind of the things that we're getting from Maryland, what are your thoughts on Governor Hogan's recent partnership or announcement that we have 500,000 test kits that we received from South Korea? And also, can you give us your thoughts on there was recently a protest in Annapolis to reopen Maryland and to take away the stay-at-home order. So can you give us your thoughts on kind of those things?
Look, the federal government said that we are on our own when it comes to these tests, and we know that we need to ramp up on tests. Having 150,000 tests done a day in a country of 300 million people is not enough. I'm thankful to the governor's wife, the first lady, for contacting and working with South Korea to get 500 tests that we need here in Maryland. And I'm glad that that's happening right now, and that's really important for us to make sure we know how many people have it. And the numbers are growing, unfortunately, and we need to make sure we keep in contact with those people and do the correct tracking of those individuals too. As far as the protests, look, we're in a situation where no, we're not New York, no, we're not California, no, we're not Washington State, but our numbers are constantly growing. And right now is not the time to open up the state economically. It's the time to double down and become more safe in our communities and in our homes. We have to protect our seniors and our folks who are most vulnerable to this condition. Quite frankly, those protests are ridiculous and they need to stop.
Trump supporters.
So, well, I appreciate your thoughts and feedback on that. Definitely understand where you're coming from. Delegate Washington, thank you so much for our social distancing edition of the Wake Up. We would love to have you. We would love to have you in studio once everything has opened back up. We thank you for your service in the Maryland House of Delegates and to our lovely county, gorgeous Prince George's. And we thank you so much and stay safe.
Thank you, and congratulations on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Delegate.
Welcome back. Next, we have Ms. Theresa Dudley, President of the Prince George's County Educators Association, also known as PGCEA, an almost 10,000 member strong educators union within Prince George's County. Ms. Dudley, thank you for joining us today and leading what I believe is the largest union in the county.
We are the largest leader in the county, and we are the 24th largest local of NEA in the country. So we're pretty big. And I want to thank you for having me here today. I appreciate it.
So we've got a short amount of time. Oh yeah, thank you for coming. Yes. We want to get right into it. My first question is, the school system is going through a drastic level of changes, and most educators have been thrust into virtual teaching and things of that nature. How is the district modifying online education to ensure that the students on all levels are being taught in a true manner that captures the nature of all the educational needs, specifically with meeting the state and local educational requirements?
So I will share with you that it's not just modifying; it's implementing. The Prince George's County school system did not have a district distance learning plan in place prior to this COVID virus. One of the issues was equity, and we can talk about equity for on some of the other pieces here. But this is very historic in Prince George's County because for the first time ever, we have been pushed to have distance learning. And I don't think this will ever be the last time we'll have to do this. Think about the big snow closures that we had where the school systems were closed for 2 weeks. There's going to be a point in time where this is going to come back at us again. So PGCEA is not just asking to have input into what's going on for this plan right now, but also putting together protocols and procedures for distance learning for in the future. So if there are closures, if there is a hurricane, if there are tornadoes, if there are earthquakes, we had earthquakes a couple years ago. So anything could happen that could close the schools down. But what we have to do is make sure that we are looking at it from an equity lens to make sure that all of our students and our educators have everything we need so that if we do need to make this shift to distance learning, it doesn't cause such great upheaval.
Okay. Theresa, quick question. For teachers who may be struggling with implementing online education, how is the school system supporting those teachers with the implementation of distance learning?
Well, I will say that last week, a week before last, there were 3 days of training for educators where they could basically take professional development online, and they were able to pick what items they wanted to use. We have gone to a Google Classroom sort of standardized format, which is good and bad. It's good in that a majority of the high schools were already using Google Classroom, but some of the middle schools and some of the elementary schools were not using Google Classroom. So it was a very big learning curve for some of our educators for them to learn how to, to use Google Classroom, and the students and the parents. There were schools that used different software like Edmodo and Class Dojo. Some were even using Blackboard. So having a uniform software package such as Google Classroom allows the system to have some consistency in what we're doing. So if you have a student who's in elementary school and middle school, the parent would understand the format of Google Classroom.
Right. And really quick, Theresa.
The second step of that is going to be, let me just finish this one point if I could. The second step of that is to go back and have additional professional development for the deeper dive in how to use all those applications interchangeably.
Hey, Theresa,
Yeah.
really quick, I do want to ask with the implementations of all these wonderful things, and I'm pretty sure the students and the educators are going to be happy about this. But what about our scholars that are on IEPs and different plans like that? Exactly, how are they managing that part?
So that is a challenge. Special education is a challenge, and it's a challenge for several reasons. Number one is making sure that the parents' legal rights and the students' legal rights are upheld according to the IDEA. And it's very complicated and it's very confusing. The biggest piece is, are the parents capable of providing the same level of service at home that that child might be receiving in school who is a special education student? That's number one. And that level of service includes technology, because if a child has a vision issue, right, do they have a monitor as opposed to a little teeny Chromebook? It's an equity issue. And so what the school system is grappling with right now is making sure that they contact all of those parents. Each of the special educators has been asked to reach out to parents to complete an individualized continual learning program for each of the students. The hard part for us is educators being able to reach the parents,
Yeah, I
because
did hear about
a
that.
lot of the parents aren't answering the phone or emails for the teachers to get the information that they need to do the plans.
Right. And speaking
Now,
of
moving
students and
forward,
parents,
we will have to have a much more consistent manner that we do this.
so really quick, because we're gonna have wrap up really soon. What's your thoughts on opinions on PGCA and the school closure for May 15th? Do you actually see us returning prior to that, or the school year is gonna do what some of the other schools around the country are doing and closing?
If I had the answer to that question, I would be able to write my own ticket and I'd be living like Beyonce. You know, it is, look, this is a pandemic like nothing we have ever seen before. And unfortunately, our president was ill informed and decided he was going to get rid of our pandemic office. Elections matter, and we need a new president in the White House. I don't care. I'm going to tell that to everybody. It's
Absolutely.
time. We got to get somebody in there's got some sense.
I agree.
Betsy DeVos has channeled money, and we want to talk about this a little bit, has channeled money to charter schools and not to our public school system to assist in this. We need to make sure that that care money that is coming to help subsidize the states and all of the different social programs and community groups, that they don't leave public schools out of the mix. Some of that money needs to make sure that we keep the high level of funding for our schools. And that way the governor can't say, oh, well, the COVID virus made it so that we can't fund the blueprint. Oh, you know what? Guess what? Didn't the federal government just give you a whole bunch of money? Stop lying. So y'all wanted me on the show. I'm gonna tell you like I feel. So I think
we
I
all
think we
appreciate it.
that elections matter. They moved the elections date, and our children need the adults in the room to make sure that they have equitable funding.
Yes, and I know you appreciate that. We were going to ask you a question about kind of the impact of the coronavirus and the blueprint for current future, but you kind of touched on that. So we just want to thank you for joining us. And I have one final question. Do you have any final thoughts?
Let me just say something to that, Jana. They have put an amendment to that if it affects the if the budget gets really impacted by this COVID, they can go back and adjust the blueprint. And we need to make sure that they don't do that. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And I did see that. I did see that amendment. I guess the concern is just, I guess the concern is just in relation to the money that we're getting from the federal standpoint of putting that into the blueprint, like you said. Just one final thing. Can you do you have any final thoughts for the seniors that are graduating, the teachers in the virtual classrooms, the students in those classrooms, the parents of those students, and our community at large?
This is a crisis and an emergency. There were things that happened in my life that prevented me from having some of the social things that I would have had. But let me just say this to our graduating seniors. PGCEA has a scholarship. We give away over 30 scholarships to Prince George's County High School graduating seniors. The average scholarship, I believe, is $1,000, which a student can use to either go to a trade school or to a community college or to a 4-year accredited college. The applications are available on our website, pgcea.org. And the money for this scholarship, majority of it comes from Prince George's County educators who believe in you, our students. And we want to make sure that people know that the deadline has been postponed until, I want to say, May 24th for people to apply. And I also want to let all the students know that their senators and their delegates also have scholarships if you're going to an in-state school. So there is money available locally for people that want to go to school. And it's pgcea.org for our scholarship.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We're going to have you definitely back in the studio once we are out of the social distancing editions. And thank you again, and be blessed and be safe.
Awesome. Look forward
I
to
love
seeing
y'all. I
Yes.
appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
Thank you, and welcome back to the Wake Up. We are joined today. One of our final guests is Mayor Tim Adams of the city of Bowie. Mayor Adams, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thank you. It's truly my pleasure, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and so I wanted to start off, first of all, congratulations on your historic win. You are the first African-American mayor of Bowie, but you came on during this time right now. So can you just kind of tell us how you've been adjusting and how your city has been adjusting and how the coronavirus has directly affected you and your residents?
Well, I think as a city as a whole, we've been trying to adjust as well as anyone can during this pandemic. It's really been a challenge for many. It's a new normal for all of us, and I think that's the key. The one thing I will say is I'm so very proud of the men and women of the city for the services that they're continuing to provide for our first responders and others in our healthcare that are on the front lines, and we know that that means so much to us. And again, to the men and women in the city, our citizens, for trying to do everything we can to lower that curve and to smooth that out so that people abiding by the stay at home and all the things that the CDC and others have recommended for us to do to change that exposure we may have.
Exactly. So, and keeping on that theme, I do want to ask, because your city just received notification that they will be receiving funds from the CARES Act. So, with those funds specifically, can you give us an idea exactly how it's going to be used for your district? And, is there any part of it that's going to be for mitigation or to respond to future incidences as such?
One of the things we do is all the municipalities, when we declared, for example, a state of emergency in the city, that we are able to use those funds to hopefully get at least partial payment back for all the things we needed to do for emergency. So when we had to go out and buy equipment and provide additional services to the community and all, we keep track of that, and then we'll apply that to the monies we receive.
Gotcha.
And so that's one of the things that's how we'll use that. We have the block grants that are available, the CARES that we're looking at using to help to replenish some of that. The state and the county and others have a formula by which they decide who gets what.
Okay.
Now, if you don't mind me going just a little further on that is, for example, the African American Mayors Association and others are trying to make sure that we can do things to get some of the monies to some of the smaller municipalities.
Right.
See, Bowie being one of the larger municipalities, we get a portion of the money. That's part of that calculation. For a lot of the smaller municipalities, they aren't included in that, and they'll have to count on getting the money from the county and maybe the state, where they're hoping that we can put in something that, with the new money coming out, that some of that will go directly to the smaller cities, to those municipalities.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I have a quick question for you. Of course, we have a lot of citizens out there, especially Bowie residents, who could use some resources. And so I just want to know, can you present the residents any options for resources to receive help in relation to food, finances, health?
Yes. Yes, I think one of the things we have that's working out extremely well and is good is we call it Neighbors Helping Neighbors. And so if you go on the Bowie website and you look on there, you'll see where there's an opportunity For example, for some of our seniors and our disabled, if they need to get someone to help them getting to the pharmacy, to go get food for them and those kind of things, they can call. And we have a lot of volunteers who are lined up to do that, as well as the food pantry within the city of Bowie. I think the residents and others have been doing a phenomenal job in contributing there. And so there are a lot of opportunities that way. I would also say that we can't look over our small businesses and businesses in general and make sure that they go on and look, because there are a lot of resources and a lot of them are running out. But still, through the Economic Development Committee and through John King at the city of Bowie, go on the website, and there are a lot of state, federal, and local programs that we can utilize. And so I just want to make sure everybody checks those to make sure that they see what might apply to them individually.
Right. And Mayor, I have a quick question for you, because I know you mentioned about certain populations. Now, one demographic that I do want to highlight that everyone particularly talks about is our evolutionary elders. And I'm wondering, and I know there's a hesitant to release information about nursing homes, but can you provide some details on how the ones in our county or in your district are faring out? If there's, any kind of information you can provide to that, or for the assisted living facilities?
To a certain extent, what I can share with you is the overall care of our seniors is going quite well. We don't have the hot spots that a lot of other communities are suffering through. So, and again, for the old sake of knocking on wood, we're still bracing for the apex for us, and a lot of people don't realize that we haven't really hit that apex yet. And so that's why it's so important that people still remember that. I know it's been a really tough time for many, but one of the things we have to understand too is we live in Prince George's County, and as we've seen all over the country, for those particularly in the African American, the Black communities, we're being hit harder than by most. And a part of that, I think it's been revealed that there's a disparity in how our health care is being distributed amongst our citizens. And so we need to be extra cautious as a community and understand that it's been tough. One thing that somebody told me is this pandemic may be bigger than you, it may be bigger than me, but it's not bigger than us. Absolutely. And we'll be able to get through this. Okay. But we've got to do it together, and we've got to look out for each other.
And Mayor Adams, just a quick question, just spitballing here. What is, during this time, a common issue that you would hear from a constituent?
I think the common issues that I hear often relate to the pandemic recovery. What is that going to look like for us? And so that's the kind of thing we're working on now, trying to see how do we help everyone, because that's the key, to make sure it's as inclusive as possible. The thing with that is also just trying to get people through this time. It really is important that we uplift each other, that we talk, that we share. Moments like this, where we can communicate, see each other. It's important. And for people to hear different voices, that's key to it. But right now, it's more of the backside. So,
are you throwing the block party after this is over with?
Excuse me?
Are we going to throw the block party when this is over with?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
I am there. Thank you so much for joining us, Mayor Adams. Fortunately, we kind of ran out of time, but we would love to have you back in studio when this is all over and we get back into the studio. And thank you for your dedications to the residents of Bowie and Prince George's County. Thank you so much. And we look forward to hearing from you again in relation to Bowie and its future. So that is all the time that we have today for The Wake Up. Join us next time as we continue our coverage on COVID and the local and state responses to it. And remember, Prince George's County, stay safe, stay gorgeous, and stay informed.